Hi, everybody. I am Robin Keller at NWIRC here, and you're here with us for our LinkedIn Live program. We are actually 1 month post conference, which we have been talking about for the past 6 months, and we are ready to tell you how amazing it went, how the manufacturers got a lot out of it. And I have a guest speaker who was at the conference, and he is an amazing maintenance masters trainer. He works at Fuss and O'Neill, and he is just an incredible person that I can't wait for you to meet. I want to introduce you to Jeff Craig, and I'm going to let him talk about himself. Hi, Jeff.
Hi, how you guys doing?
We're doing really well. I know that you're in a wonderful, warm area today in Arizona, your
Yes,
headquarters.
yes. So it's going to be in the mid 80s today, so a little chilly, but
Oh,
not
yeah.
horrible.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, do you mind telling the audience a little bit about yourself, your title, and everything that you do for Fuss and O'Neill?
Absolutely. So I'm Jeff Craig. I work for Fuss O'Neill Manufacturing Solutions. We're headquartered out of Hartford, Connecticut, but my office is in Tempe, Arizona. So we're nationwide. We work with, so there's Fuss and O'Neill Incorporated, which is a civil engineering firm, bridges and roads, and then there's Manufacturing Solutions. So Manufacturing Solutions, we work with manufacturers, institutions, colleges, hospitals, municipalities, and those type of organizations to help them with their safety, their machine guarding, and my role, asset management and reliability. So their maintenance programs. My background is mostly military. I did 21 years in the Navy. I retired as a senior chief. I was a gas turbine guy on surface ships. So, maintenance is very important when you're out to sea. I retired, collected a couple of degrees, and then I picked up a maintenance manager position at a snack food factory, where was my first initial exposure, if you will, of manufacturing maintenance. And it's very similar to shipboard maintenance. A few different things. We're not getting underway, and I get to go home at the end of the day. But one of the things that I really learned is that how reactive manufacturing maintenance can be. And so having my military background, my maintenance background for ships, it was just kind of a natural fit. And then I was there for a few years, realized that I kind of missed travel. So I travel quite a bit for my job now, but I kind of missed the travel and landed here at Manufacturing Solutions, where I go to different facilities and institutions and municipalities and help them get better value out of their asset management and maintenance effort, and how to really get their safety programs in a better state, get their capacity in a better state. So so that's kind of a 30-second view of what I do.
Thank you, Jeff. I mean, what has made you want to continue to work directly with maintenance teams?
I think a lot of it is I believe in the effort. A lot of organizations, and I'm sure people watching this might, feel this a little bit, is that our asset management and our reliability, they're talked about quite a bit, but it's maintenance that makes a lot of that happen. And there are places where maintenance is looked at as a necessary evil or a luxury item, or pick any other phrase that goes in there. And when I go in and I can help a facility, help a team get better value out of their efforts, and kind of, sometimes it's a cultural shift, getting that stress out of the day. It just makes me feel real good. So I really like getting going in and working with teams and helping them change that culture, that help with their asset management and their reliability, which helps with their safety, helps with their capacity, helps with just a whole variety, because maintenance is really the cornerstone of any manufacturing department or any manufacturing industry.
Oh, I 100% agree with you. And after working with a lot of maintenance people myself, they are really sometimes the heroes of the company, and maybe the unsung heroes for sure.
Yes.
Um, Now, you've worked with a lot of manufacturers. So, what's the most common challenge you see when you first walk into a plant?
So, and that's an excellent question, because when I walk into some places, depending on what the manufacturer is and how long it's been there, it could be, let's call them sins of the past. So we've been, and we as the manufacturer have been trying to, just get product out the door as fast as we can. So we're littered with band-aids that finally have caught up to us, and that puts us in pure firefighting mode. Another big challenge we run into is people. They just don't have enough people. But I think one of the opportunities is with the people they have. If they have really good people, really good techs, really good team, if they reevaluate their expectations of what their asset management is, they can really move the needle into the positive. Because one of the challenges we run into is that we're fighting that both figurative and literal four-letter word of lean. And don't get me wrong, I'm a lean guy, but lean needs to be better, not less. And I think a lot of organizations looked at it as less, so they reduced headcount, but they didn't change their expectations of their asset care. And if you're expecting, people to do more with less, eventually they're going to start doing less with less, because that's how less works. So those are a couple of the big hitters that I usually see walking into a facility.
You just said the firefighting mode. So, what does reactive maintenance really cost an organization that's beyond just repair dollars?
Oh, well, reactive maintenance is usually about 10 times more expensive than planned maintenance. For any other reason, reactive maintenance never happens when it's convenient. Nothing ever fails when it's convenient. You living up in the Northeast, your furnace never goes out in the summertime. It'll go out at 3 a.m. on a 20 below zero day. That's when the bad thing happens. So if we can keep our equipment healthier longer and keep that level of care up, that reduces the opportunity of that actually happening. So, just the cycle around is that, reactive maintenance is, it's overtime, it's parts, it's not just the cost of that individual incident, it's the cascading costs over time, because we're band-aiding ourselves to a failure mode eventually. So it costs a lot over time, because we're just not maintaining our equipment very well.
Mm-hmm. Well, why is it so hard for companies to break free from a reactive mindset? I mean, even when they know it's not sustainable.
That's part of the cultural shift that really needs to happen. So a lot of times organizations are looking at how can we get more product out the door, which I get. They're in business to make a product to sell to their clients. That's how they sustain themselves. That's how they make money. That's how they pay their employees. That's how they reinvest. However, the quest for getting the product out the door is blinding them to the true cost of that. So if we're pressing the production team to, okay, you got to meet your numbers, you got to keep going, and then something happens, and don't get me wrong, I mean, I would love it if nothing ever failed, but we know that's not the case. Eventually something is going to fail, but our goal is to minimize the impact of that failure. However, if we have not maintained our equipment very well over the long period of time and just worked to get product out the door, our equipment's not going to be very healthy. So that impact is going to be greater when the failure comes. That's why we kind of are robbing Peter to pay Paul when it comes to growth, because a lot of companies will grow their manufacturing really quick, but their maintenance expectations stay the same. and that's kind of an afterthought. So I think it's really when the leadership or the decision makers are looking at how the facility is run, maintenance doesn't come into play. It's a necessary evil. It's just a nice to have or whatever. But the true value of maintenance is maintenance creates capacity. The better your equipment is maintained, the more capacity you're going to have, and the safer it will be as a byproduct. Safety is a byproduct of good maintenance.
You're 100% right. And, we've talked to a lot of maintenance guys. I mean, you've talked to a lot more than I have, but they say this all the time. And it would be really nice if they had maybe a better culture in their facility. And you emphasize that maintenance excellence isn't just technical, it's cultural. So why is culture such a make or break factor?
Well, culture is, it has so much to do with just how things are done. And one of the examples I use is when you get somebody new in the organization, whether they're in maintenance or operations or wherever they are, the way they see the operation being conducted at that moment sets them up for, this is the way it's done. This is as they expect. So if I walk into, so say I'm a new maintenance tech and I walk into an organization and they're making baby bottles or whatever it is, and I see leaks all over the place and I see lots of Band-Aids and I see all of these different points of neglect, that has just set the standard of what is my expectation of my job. So if this is as good as you want, this is as good as I'll give. So we have to have those expectations of, we want well-maintained equipment. We want good information. We need to have those expectations that build that culture. So they're doing it the right way first time, every time, and not having to revisit this failure 6 times in a day. So it's really developing that culture that understands that maintenance affects the bottom line and not in a cost mode. It actually can build the bottom line because you get more capacity and more production out of it.
Well, what would you say to help long tenured technicians buy into a new system or a process or a culture change, if you will?
Oh, that can be touchy because you get folks with antique blonde in their beard like me, kind of set in their ways. What I do is I start talking to them about, what would you do if you had your druthers and you could make anything happen? And they'll start, well, I wish we could have more time and we can have more. So they'll list up all the barriers that they perceive that's preventing them from doing the right thing. It's like, okay, so if we can remove one of these barriers, how would you take advantage of that? And so you start bringing these folks into the decision-making process because they got a ton of knowledge up in their head. I mean, their gray matter is thick with knowledge. However, it's kind of been tainted over time that they're managing their expectations. This is all that's expected, and I want to do better. And so we really need to get them as part of the decision-making process and a part of the solution, rather than me just going in and say, you got to do it X, Y, and Z. That never works out well. That really doesn't. That's I'm walking in telling them how to do their job. They know how to do their job. They just need permission and the tools to do it to the level that we have our expectations at.
Well, I'd like to change the pace a little bit because you were at our conference and you were able to talk to many different manufacturers there. And what was a success for you at the conference this year?
Well, I think there was a lot of successes. It was such a great conference. One of I think the biggest head-nodding aha moment that I got during the conference was when I was speaking with my counterpart, Tanya Perkins, and we were in the breakout sessions, and the question was, kind of brought up, how do you bring veterans into the organization? And when I gave my story of how, I was a veteran that 21 years institutionalized in the military, I did have a way of thinking that was not as conducive to manufacturing as I would like it have been. However, once I really started going through and talking about the barriers I had to overcome and how start removing those barriers for some veterans, they've got a talent pool out there that's really untapped. And one of the big ticket items is, and I know this is hard to do for some organizations, is review the resumes personally, not through software. And one of the big barriers that veterans have coming into the organization is they have a hard time civilianizing their expertise. And there's a huge pool of talent for technical and administrative and logistical talent that if they can just get past the software, they have a better chance of being hired and being an asset to the company. So I think that was one of my biggest aha moments, is that when we were talking about the labor pool, which is always important and usually brought up with manufacturers, is that we can't find people. Well, there's plenty of people out there. It's just we have to know what we're looking for. And it's on both sides of the spectrum there. I have to civilianize what I do. I have to translate it. However, sometimes that's easier said than done. So now if we, in manufacturing solutions, or even in a company that I work with and have a relationship with, they'll send me resumes that have, all this military experience on it. And they say, can you tell me what this means? I'm more than happy to translate. And if you have a vet in your organization already, they're probably a good translator for that. Is it a good fit? Is it not a good fit? Where would they, what does it mean? So I think that was really the biggest takeaway, biggest aha moment for me was during that breakout session. But I mean, it was just such a great conference that, the keynote speaker was great. The breakout sessions were great. I really learned a lot about meta glasses. I'm still shopping around for mine. So it's, there was many, but I think during that breakout session was the big one for me.
Oh, well, thanks, Jeff. I'm really glad. I'm glad that you got a lot out of it too. And what do you think, for next year? Why should manufacturers come?
Well, the thing is manufacturers, I think, are, for the most part, introverts. Okay, they don't show up for a lot of stuff because they're back at their facilities manufacturing. I think coming to this conference specifically, and other conferences as well, but this one specifically really helps build that network lattice of not competition, but collaboration. Just like in the cohort that we do, we have people from oil refineries and food production and plastics manufacturing and metal and just all these different industries. They have a lot in common, and they're able to cross-pollinate ideas for improvement. We're doing this at our facility, maybe it'll work at yours, and back and forth. And honestly, you got to show up to get that. So I think if manufacturers are looking for collaboration or partnerships with other industries, just on how can we do things better, and where has your pain points been, and these are mine. I think that's a huge value. And it's not just setting up a booth, it's really communicating and networking with the other manufacturers in the area.
I 100% agree with you. I think going to these types of events really help you build some relationships. I think that you're getting peer-to-peer advice, which is very helpful. And then, the seasoned people like you, Jeff, that you're going to learn some stuff from, and which we really appreciate. And by the way, thank you for your service. One thing I didn't realize how much maintenance was in the military, and especially being in the Navy. I learned so much about what you did during your time there, and it's amazing how it really does tie into manufacturing and all the skills that you learned. I mean, you just have so much knowledge. So I appreciate that you keep coming back to us and keep giving it to our manufacturers. But I mean, how long does it realistically take before a manufacturer or a company starts seeing the results from your proactive maintenance efforts?
Well, that kind of depends on the manufacturer. However, um, the saying is pain has no memory. Once and I when I go into manufacturers and we start developing a plan for change and asset management and whatever their needs are, one of the things I say is good, solid, sustainable change happens with nudges, not shoves. Jeff Craig can walk in there and turn the entire place on ear and be back to where it was in a month. Okay, so that the change isn't going to stick. What we need to do is be more focused on how we change. So I would say just pick one. There's a thought process, the 1% rule. If you're looking to optimize your preventive maintenance tasks, do 1% of them a month. And that's it. If you've got 100 PMs, do one a month and make it sure it's one that's recently been done, and you evaluate it to see what kind of value did it bring out of it. Did it prevent a failure? Did we find anything to correct? Is it generating anything for our backlog? Do we have consistency out of that PM? So I would say just really start small and then start working our way through that. Now, generally, we call it the 3 to 5 year journey to really start making your way towards world-class maintenance. But they'll start seeing results pretty quickly. I mean, like for planning and scheduling, plan and schedule one maintenance task. Give me one, because if you can plan and schedule one to a certain degree of success, not all plans go to plan. But if you can do that, that is one thing you don't have to react to. It's planned, it's off your plate. Now you have time to focus on something else. And it's a snowball effect. It'll start building steam if you let it. So I would say just, one, start small, and the returns will be quicker than you think.
If you could, I guess, talk to an executive at a manufacturer to get them to better understand the maintenance teams and what their impact is on the bottom line, I mean, what would you say to them? What can you do to convince the higher ups how important maintenance is?
Well, that's excellent. And I find that one of the examples I use is that when you hear your equipment out there running on the manufacturing floor, doesn't matter what it's making. I don't care what it's making. But when you listen to it, think of it as a printing press printing $100 bills. That's what your equipment is doing. When it's quiet, it's expensive. When it's running well, it's making you money. And that's how we need to view maintenance. Maintenance generates capacity. Maintenance creates capacity. And I use that as an example because we treat our personal vehicles much better than we treat our production equipment that makes us money. Our personal vehicles cost us money from the day you buy it, from the day you get rid of it. And I look out into the parking lots at all these manufacturers, and there's a lot of very nice vehicles that have missed an oil change. So if maintenance isn't that important in production, why is it so important in your personal vehicle? And vice versa. If it's so important in your car to get you to work, why isn't it so important at work to get you printing that money? So we really, when I talk to executives, I put that in the perspective is that you're bleeding money and you don't know where it's coming from, and you probably don't even realize it. You're just figuring into the cost. How can we make it more profitable? Because all companies want to grow. How can we make it more profitable? How can we make it better? How can we make it safer? How can we make it that your company is a place that people want to work at, not have to work at? And that usually starts jarring some imagination with, maybe we've got a bad reputation for being unsafe, or the equipment's always broke, or maybe we're dealing with some on-time delivery problems because our equipment keeps on going down. Let's refocus. Why is it going down? Let's start doing a 5 why, or asking the question. So attaching that value and a pain point with what's going on in their equipment versus everything else, that's a one way to get them to start thinking and viewing maintenance differently as more than just a cost center.
I like it, Jeff. I think that's perfect. And I would like to kind of talk about your program that you run with us. And I know that you do this program in Arizona, and I know you do it other places as well in Pennsylvania. And really, anybody who wants this could get it from you. But what makes a structured program like the Maintenance Master's certification valuable compared to just like one-off training session?
Well, it's very valuable to organizations that are looking to enhance their maintenance efforts. One of the challenges I usually run into or I hear about is that we need more skilled labor. I need more technicians. We need more people with skills. Well, skills are great. I don't disagree that we need very skilled technicians. However, if they don't know how a PM is supposed to be written, how to get consistency out of our efforts, how to plan and schedule. So we do a maintenance excellence. What does a good maintenance program look like, and how does it bring value to the organization? And then the next one is maintenance leadership, which is usually a challenging point because you get these technicians that move up to the ranks and they're promoted, and that's wonderful. That's great. However, just because they're the number one technician doesn't mean they know how to manage a maintenance program or a maintenance organization. And then we get into preventive and predictive maintenance. How can we get into a well-written PM, and what's the value of it? And how do we get past the obstacle of production never gives us the equipment? Well, let's get into predictive maintenance. Are we using ultrasound, UV, UV, IR, oil analysis, whatever flavor that looks like? Are we using that to get dynamic information from our equipment to better manage its health? And then we get into planning and scheduling. How do we model this? And we look at root cause analysis. One of the things that organizations, they say, oh, I wish I did more root cause analysis. Why aren't you doing more root cause analysis? Let's root cause why you're not doing your root cause analysis. Let's 5 why that. And it basically comes down to we're in reactive mode. Okay, well, if we 5 why, or if we root cause one failure, that can remove that failure from coming back, at least in the short term, possibly forever. And then we get into troubleshooting. Now, there's no way I'm going to be an expert in everybody's equipment. I think I'm a pretty smart guy, but I'm not that smart. But troubleshooting has a methodology, okay? It's not just part swapping. And I think our maintenance culture has gone to a part swapping kind of mentality. We're going to just change things until something different happens. And now I've blown a lot of money on parts. I don't know if they're good or not. I don't know if I got the root cause. So building the structured program really helps organizations understand that it's not just the technical skills. Technical skills are important. However, how we manage it is just as important as how we staff it and stock the talent.
Well, and I agree with you too, because if you're doing you're doing a PM, or you're doing something that you planned to have down, that's going to be a better teaching moment for somebody just starting than the putting out fires session, because that's going to be pure panic. And how much are they really going to get out of it? But if you have these planned moments of maintenance, oh yeah, you're going to get a lot out of it. You're going to be able to train the younger generation that is coming into maintenance that, will be with you hopefully for a long time. But what's a big aha moment that you hear the students during this program?
I think one of the biggest aha moments we get is when they realize consistency is what they should strive for over quantity. And I know it's usually quantity versus quality, but what I mean by consistency is that when we're putting in our maintenance efforts and we've got technicians out on the floor doing preventive maintenance, predictive maintenance, corrective maintenance, emergency maintenance, whatever they're doing, consistency is much more valuable than just getting it done and getting it up and running. And what I mean by that is that if I have someone with a lot of seniority, all the antique blonde in their beard, I want that outcome to be very similar to the one with the most juniority, the new person, because if we're doing it the same, I don't care if everybody's doing it wrong. As long as they're doing it wrong the same way, we have a direction to head. So I think the aha moment is, we need consistency in our maintenance efforts. We need consistency of outcome so we know what the true value is and what are the true obstacles. What's hurting. We can over maintain stuff. We can do bad maintenance. We can have maintenance induced failures, but if everybody's doing it different, I don't know what's good and what's bad. So I think that's, really it's we need consistency. Okay. That's usually one of the biggest aha moments. And that translates through the entire maintenance effort. It could be preventative, predictive, corrective. It doesn't really matter. We need consistency in our maintenance. And then that way we know where to make adjustments if needed.
Nice. Well, I want to kind of wrap things up, but I want to ask you, what excites you most about the future of maintenance and reliability?
So I'm an AI guy. I'm a kind of a techie guy. Don't get me wrong. I'm not waiting for Skynet to come online and get my own Terminator. But one of the things that I'm really excited about is how we can get better value out of the information. Well, let me rephrase that. How we can get information out of the data we can collect, and using AI to really drive solutions and improvement. And what I mean by that is that AI does everything we do, it just does it a lot faster. So if we can have AI in our computerized maintenance management system, our CMMS, and we put the right amount of information, it's tracking and trending failure analysis and repairs, mean time to repairs, mean time between failures. It's tracking all that stuff for us, because one of the big barriers we have is time. Let's use a tool that can help us get us time back. AI is never going to change a belt for you. AI is never going to change the oil. AI is never going to have to turn wrenches. That's not where AI is going to be handy. AI is really going to be handy with our troubleshooting efforts. We can load in the tech manual and the symptoms to an AI chatbot and just say, what are the probable causes? It'll come up with one for you pretty quickly. And then that turns into a teaching moment. So now we know symptoms correlate to this outcome, and now we're building our own troubleshooting guide for the next generation. One of the challenges, we have is we call it the silver tsunami. So everybody antique blonde getting ready to go retire, they're taking all that knowledge with them. And one of the big things I get from it, how can we capture that knowledge? Well, we can capture it through AI, because we can get them to just talk to the computer, talk to text. Let's get the information into the system. Once it's in there, now we can start racking and stacking and using it. So how are we going to transfer all that knowledge into future benefit for our less experienced people? Is, I think AI has a good way to do it. And I know I saw this at the last conference when I mentioned the Meta glasses. And that was an eye opener for me, that this person, I can't remember what his name is, but this person came out and he says, I created this PM wearing my Meta glasses and I used AI to voice it over. And he showed it in the breakout session. It's like, that's brilliant. A point of view PM. How are we getting that information? we all use YouTube. We all use, online searches and stuff like that to learn stuff. Why aren't we implementing that and getting it in our system so the next generation understands what's going on? That's what I'm really excited about, to see how companies really embrace this. Because, not to put too fine a point on it, big's not going to eat small, fast is going to eat slow. So if the company that's embracing it, they're going to start eating people's lunch.
Absolutely. 100% agree with you. And it was Brandon Keegley who I had on my conversation, the LinkedIn Live too, is yes, he was great. And that's a valid point. Again, he's a manufacturer. He is working in the field and he's using those meta glasses in his field right now.
Yep.
So I know this is the future and let's embrace it. I'm totally down with that. And I have one last question for our manufacturers and our listeners. What's one idea from this conversation that they can take away from?
I think it would probably be, take a long, hard look on how you view your maintenance organization. And if they took one thing away, just say, are you looking at them as a pure cost center, or are you looking at them as their manufacturing capacity? And if you're saying a cost center, how can we get over to the capacity side? And if you're saying capacity, how can we enable them to generate more capacity? So I think, really view the way it is, because if, you don't, a lot of companies say, we have a culture of safety, or we have a culture of quality. Well, if you don't have a culture of maintenance, the other two aren't as strong as you think, because well-maintained equipment is naturally safer. Well-maintained equipment puts out a better product. So how are we viewing maintenance as an asset rather than a cost center? I would say take a long, hard look at how your culture treats maintenance.
I love that. I agree. Again, unsung heroes. So, Jeff, thank you so much for talking with me today. I could talk to you for hours, but I know that we both have other things we want to do this weekend. So I appreciate you so much. And tell our listeners how they can get a hold of you if they have any extra questions, or maybe they want you to come to their facility.
So yeah, if you're in the Erie, Pennsylvania area, contact Robin. She will put you in contact with me, or my email is Jeff, Jeff.Craig, Craig, at fando.com. You can find us at fussmfgsol.com. That's our website. Reach out. I'm a pretty easy guy to get a hold of, and we can chat and talk maintenance. And if you want to pick my brain, pick my brain. I'm in the Pennsylvania area quite often, so I can do a site visit. But those are the two best ways to get a hold of us, or the three best ways to get a hold of us. And just look at how you want your maintenance journey to go forward, and let's see how we can help to do that, help support you do that.
Thank you so much, Jeff. I appreciate you. Have a great weekend.
You too. Thank you very much.